Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is Monday, December 2nd, and this is episode number 505. Fantastic guest today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him here in a second. But before I do, I want to just say this is definitely going to be an excellent lesson in blues music today, and also a lesson in the B3 organ, the Hammond B3. If you've listened to my show over the years, you know I love B3 players. I've had some great ones on, the legend himself, Ben Montench. And there was a time where there was B3 Hammond organs everywhere. You would see them in people's living rooms. They would just have them in their house. And Sundays, they'd sit around and play and sing. And you would see them in churches, everywhere. I remember there was a guy in a pizza parlor who would just play one while you were eating pizza. It was just a different time, and the B3 was the reigning king. And my guest today is definitely one of the greatest B3 players of all time, Mike Flanigin out of Austin, Texas. And this guy is, first of all, I saw him play at Seaboys in Austin about a year ago, and I was like, I've got to have him on. He was playing with Jimmie Vaughan. They have a band that plays like every week at this small little club, and I was in there and I was just blown away. It was amazing to sit down and talk to this man. We go all over the board, but he tells us all about the old days, the great players, Wild Bill Davis, Big John Patton, Jimmy Smith, Freddie Roach, all these great B3 players that would have these trios that are just amazing. When you hear, just go listen to a Big John Patton record. You can hear it on iTunes or whatever your streaming is, and just throw it on. You'll be in heaven. And then after you're done with that, throw on Mike Flanigin's solo record, The Drifter. Mike, incredible guest. I can't thank you enough for doing the show, Mike. He told some great stories about how he started, and then playing with Jimmie Vaughan, and then later with Billy Gibbons. This guy's toured all around the world, playing the damn B3 organ, hauling that 700-pound machine around. I loved it. Great stories. Before we get into it, let's do some quick shout-outs. Hard Reuben. This episode is dedicated to you, buddy. Thanks for the holiday pledge. And all of you Patreoners out there, patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. All the bonus episodes are up, and you have access to those with a subscription to the Patreon. Also, I want to give the shows coming up here real quick. December 12th, this week, Toys for Tots show. I'll be headlining the La Jolla Comedy Store. That is Thursday night. December 21st, Las Vegas at the Cosmopolitan with Bill Burr. December 27th, Caluso, and the 28th, Palace of Fine Arts, that's Sacramento and San Fran, with the great Joey Diaz. January 4th, I'll be headlining in Fresno. January 13th through the 19th, Vegas Cellar, Las Vegas Cellar, Comedy Cellar. And headlining the Stress Factory, January 31st and February 1st. Those are some of the shows right now. You can get it at DeanDelRey.com, all your ticket info. I hope you guys had a great fist fight Friday at the Black Friday sales. Knock them out. Get your plasma screen up on the wall. And I hope everybody's having a Cyber Monday. Anyway, let's get into it. Here he is right here, the great Mike Flanigin. All right, here we are, another episode of Let There Be Talk. Fantastic guest today. Introduce yourself.
Mike Flanigin, Texan.
Texan, I love it. Mike Flanigin, B3 fucking killer.
B3 player, that's true.
Oh my.
Hammond organ, that's my game.
Hammond organ, yeah, because some people play C3.
Yeah, right? They're those are all like the B3, the Hammond B3, and the Hammond C3, and the Hammond A100 are all really basically the same model. It's just different wood.
Oh, is that really?
It's true. So the B3 was made for performers, quote unquote, because you can see their feet, their footwork on the pedals, right?
Yeah.
The C3 was made for churches. It has a closed back.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what C stands for, closed back.
Yeah.
So like the church ladies, like you couldn't see up their dress, right? Like it's closed. And then the A100 was the home model. So it was, for your house, and it had speakers actually in it.
I know that one.
You didn't need, a tone cabinet or a Leslie speaker. So they're all the same. Technically speaking, you hook them up through a Leslie, they'll sound the same. But for me, I like B3.
B3.
Because the way it's built, just the dimensions of it, and the fact that you can see, since I do the foot pedals, people can see it, and that's, people get a lot out of that. But it's like getting in a car that is just right for you,
Right.
And so when I sit down at the B3, I have a certain feeling. When I sit down at a C3 or an A100, I don't get that exact feeling. I
understand that because visuals, I look at like Greg Allman, and there was his boots. You would see his badass boots, his bell bottoms through the four legs there.
Yeah.
And he would do a lot of kind of movement. Greg Allman had that kind of a performer thing.
You could see it, and a B3 is like it's got more depth to it.
Yeah.
So you can put, guitar players like to put their stuff on it. It's like a desk. You could put your stuff on it. Whereas C3 and stuff, it's not as wide.
Yeah.
And so you can put things on it, and somehow it just looks. There's a certain way it looks. So like when you see Greg Allman or whoever it is playing a B3, to me it just gives you a visual. Certain.
The visual it gives me is I got a herniated disc in my neck right now. It definitely gives me herniated back feelings of moving those things. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I mean,
they're not made to be touring, but that's why they chopped them down later.
Here's the thing. Here's my theory on all that, right? Because I've seen everybody try. It's huge to move.
Huge.
But that said, there's only 4 or 5 pieces. You've got the B3, you got the pedals, you got the bench, you got the Leslie, and you got the cord. And it's pretty easy. Once you get it there, you hook those things up, and so I see guys who have chopped it, and it's still not easy to move. It's still heavy.
Oh yeah.
And then there's always some sort of contraption they've created to get it to stand up, and they've got all these cords, and it looks like more work than, at some point it's just get the trailer and put the B3 in it as is.
Yeah.
And plus they're rare. I mean, they made a lot of them, but I couldn't take a saw to a B3. I couldn't do it. I mean, that would be...
Oh, I get it. It's like when those people would put Floyd Roses on 59 Les Pauls back in the day, or Blackguard Telly. You're like, no.
Oh, yeah. Don't.
Yeah. Where is Hammond made out of?
Chicago's where they made those.
They still around?
No, they are in a sense.
Korg bottom.
I think it was Hammond. It's Hammond Suzuki now.
Oh, gotcha.
But what happened was. And I actually went to the Chicago factory this year. It's not obviously a Hammond organ factory anymore, but they do have a Hammond organ showroom in there. There's a guy that fixes them and that has Hammonds. But the building itself is beautiful, red brick. It's Chicago. We're making stuff.
Love it.
And we're making these Hammond electric organs, and back then they overbuilt things.
Those things are bulletproof.
They're bulletproof.
Triple soldered. All these capacitors that are like, I've seen the insides.
Yeah, you open up the back and you think, this thing's so fragile. You couldn't move it anywhere. Well, you throw them in the back of a trailer behind a tour bus and you're hitting potholes. You're going, down the Bronx Expressway or something. It's just like, and then you pull it out and it all works. I mean, it's pretty amazing. They're built like tanks. And they break occasionally, but I mean, considering what's inside, I mean, they really built those things. And so, hats off to the Hammond Organ Company, and the wood's beautiful. I mean, just the craftsmanship that went into those things.
Oh, it's insane. And they didn't cut corners later, like go plastic.
Right. And they existed. I don't know when Hammond went out of business. I know they quit making the Hammond B3 in 1974.
Oh, that's the year.
That was the year. They only made them. I think the B3 model itself came out in 55, and it stopped in 74. So the newest, Hammond B3 or C3 you would get is set in 1974. That's the newest one you would get.
That's incredible.
I mean, the one, kind of my main one that I've always had, and it's still my favorite B3, it's like a 56.
Or do they have the dates on them with serial numbers?
Yeah, with the serial, you can look them up. So I looked up the serial number, and I found over the years that I liked the early ones, like 56, and I also liked 63 and 64.
Really?
I don't know why.
Tell?
You would look it up, you would find the serial number, and you'd be curious, and you would find out. Plus, the logos are a little different. I mean, you can tell a few things that they changed over the years, so you would kind of spot them. Okay, this is early 60s, this is 50s, this is 70s. I mean, there's a few little optical things you could see right off the bat. But, I mean, there's something about it. I mean, how I got into it.
Oh, it's incredible. I was reading how you got into it. First of all, how you got your first one for $700 from a lady that was selling it from a church.
Right. Well, how it started was, I mean, kind of at a certain point, I was in Austin, and I was kind of in the junior house band of Antone's, which is a huge blues club at that time. It was very famous.
Super famous.
And in that era, it was the fabulous Thunderbirds with
Stevie
Jimmie
Ray.
Vaughan and Stevie Ray, and I would go down and it'd be Albert Collins or Otis Rush. Those were the guys you saw all the time. You go see Albert Collins, you'd walk in, he'd be getting his shoes shined, then he'd be playing cards in the back. And they'd hand him his guitar. It had, the 100-foot chord. He'd quit playing cards, and he would start playing, walk on stage. So they had a B3 at Antone's, and it wasn't used that much. You didn't see a lot of people play it. I mean, they had a real piano and a real B3. And I always loved the B3. I mean, it goes back a long way. My oldest sister played one in church, when I was a kid. She's 10 years older than I am. In the Lutheran church. I mean, it wasn't like a, gospel revival or anything.
Yeah,
but I always dug it. It was a white one, and she had a white one? Yeah, she had a white one, which is funny because when I play with Jimmie Vaughan, I have a white one and a white Leslie. And that's what she played. She had a white B3 and a white Leslie. I'll still remember it. And she would play, and she had a gown on, and I just thought, wow, this is cool. I mean, I was only 5. I didn't play B3 till way, way, way later.
Yeah, because you started on guitar.
I started on guitar. So I was playing guitar, and actually at that moment in time, I was playing a lot of steel guitar. I was trying to, I wanted to be Hop Wilson, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Hop Wilson, but he was a blues guy in the 60s. He'd passed away fairly young, and he played steel guitar blues. So I was fascinated with Hop Wilson. So I was playing a lot of steel guitar, kind of blues steel at that particular time. But they had a B3 there, and I was trying to play a song by Big John Patton, the great organ player.
He's incredible.
On the steel.
Yeah.
And then I looked at the B3 and I thought, well, why am I trying to play this on the steel? I could just be, even though I don't know how to play, piano or anything.
At all. Yeah.
I'll try and play this B3. And so the sound man turned it on for me, and the only tip I got was find what key you're in, and if you count up 3, that's a minor. If you count up 4, that's a major, right?
Yeah.
That's all I knew. And then I realized, okay, if I go down 2, this is 7th, and that's all I needed to know. And the B3 sounds pretty good anyway. You know what I mean?
You got, at the time, though, you got all these drawbars, there's pedals, there's the Leslie.
All that stuff.
I mean, and you don't even know how to play piano, so your hand coordination is good from guitar, but still, it's like...
And it works the opposite way, because I first started playing the B3... I would just play at Antone's when other bands were playing, like the house band with Derek O'Brien, those guys. I would sneak up and just start playing. Everybody would yell at me like, what are you doing? This sounds horrible. But I didn't care. That's what I would do.
Yeah.
And but how I ended up buying a B3, to go back to your story, was Doyle Bramhall Sr.,
Yep.
who was a great singer
Great.
and drummer and songwriter, co-wrote a lot of that Stevie stuff and wrote many great songs.
Yeah, I know his son.
Looking Out the Window. And his son,
Yep.
Little Doyle. Doyle
Yeah.
2.
Archangels, all that stuff.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And so we kind of came up together, me and Little Doyle. I still call him Little Doyle.
Yeah.
I don't call him Doyle 2, but...
He killed it in Roger Waters' band in, I think, the 90s. I saw it.
Man, he can do it all.
Yeah, he can. And his wife. I don't know if he's still
that's
married.
right. Yeah. Little Doyle is, I mean, he's just one of the most talented guys you'll ever see.
Yeah.
He can just do anything. And his voice.
Yeah, he's killer.
I mean, we did a gig once. It was kind of a tribute to his dad after his dad passed away. So he played a lot of those songs. He did Bobby Bland songs. I mean, he just did stuff. St. James Infirmary by Bobby Bland. Who can sing that? Little Doyle, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, I could go on about Little Doyle.
Yeah.
I love Little Doyle.
I mean, that was that whole era of Austin, too. You know, I call
Right.
it the Strat and the Hat. You
Yep.
know, once Stevie's there, everybody gets the Strat and the Hat. And
Yep.
And it's just every 2 feet on that street there was just music that was killing.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine now because at the time we thought, well, this is just the way it is, and this is the way it's going to be, and this is what everybody wants to do, and this is just the best music in the world, and we're all here trying to do it, you know.
Yeah.
And of course now, I look back and I think there's really just a handful of people in my mind that are still out there doing it, you know, in that way.
In that way,
In that
totally,
in that
totally.
Texas, Austin, Texas way, because you kind of had to be there. I mean, there's some younger guys who are fabulous.
Yeah, Johnny Lang came the next wave.
Right. Well, and Gary Clark,
Gary Clark
from
right now.
Austin.
Yeah.
But he never went to he was too young. He never made it to the Guadalupe Antones, the Antones on Guadalupe. He only knew it once it moved to the 5th Street. But in my mind, the Guadalupe one, that was the one where you walked in and Albert Collins was there and Otis Rush was there and Pinetop Perkins was playing and Calvin Fuzz Jones was on bass and Willie Big Eye Smith was on drums. I mean, that was an era that was kind of unto itself, right? And then you would see, Jimmie Vaughan play.
Yeah.
And these guys that they took it so seriously. Denny Freeman and Derek O'Brien and Lou Ann Barton and Angela Straley. I mean, maybe some of these names aren't household names, but in Austin, they were
just killers.
They were the kings and queens of Austin, and blues, and they really were serious about it, right? Like they were going to do it right. None so more as Jimmie Vaughan. I mean, he's still the guy people look to. And
Absolutely.
go, that's the guy that knows how to do it, and he knows every part that was on the record. He has instant recall. And then he has his style he puts on top of it, and it's always what we would say correct, and surprising, and gives you that feeling that it's not easy. Blues is that's why I still love the blues more than anything. Like I love all kinds of music, but I don't love anything more than blues by a mile. I mean, blues for me is it. Nothing gives me that feeling like good blues,
So I interrupted you, but you're getting your first B3.
Okay, right.
Yeah, because
right.
I like to go all over the place.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So Doyle Bramhall Sr. saw me at Antone's, and I was playing the B3, and he said, "Hey, I want to hire you for my band." And his band, traveled at least, just regionally, and in Texas there. But I didn't have a B3. Number one, I said, Doyle, I've only been playing like 3 months, like on other people's gigs, sneaking up here. I really don't know what I'm doing, He said, no, I like the way it sounds. And so then I had to find a B3, and luckily the next day, this was pre-Craigslist, I looked in the paper, and there was one for sale, $700. And I called the lady. She said, oh, I've had so many phone calls. Whoever gets here first gets it, And I was in the south part of Austin, and she lived up north. And man, I hauled ass up there, and I got there, and I remember I got to the front door, she opened it up, I saw it sitting there, and I was like, I'll take it. And a guy pulled in the driveway and came up and said, I'll give you double that.
Yeah.
And she said no. She was a nice little church lady. She played at church, and this was her
home
home that she practiced. And she said, no, that's what I said. And so that's how I got it. And thank God it was $700. Thank God she didn't say, okay, yeah, 1400, have a bidding war, because I didn't have the money, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's how it all started. I got that organ, you know.
I was in Austin with Bill Burr, and we were doing Austin City Limits 3 nights, comedy.
Right.
And Bill goes, hey, man, Jimmie's playing. I hit him up. Let's go see him after we're done at the Continental Club. I think that's what it's called, the Continental.
Sea Boys. We were down at Sea Boys, which is owned by the same guy. Steve Wertheimer owns the Continental Club and Sea Boys.
So we take an Uber up there, and we get there right in time. It happens to be, I guess you guys had a live record coming out that night.
Oh, yeah, Live at Sea Boys.
Yeah.
That album came
So
out.
we get this fucking killer booth. Jimmie comes over, hey, guys, you made it cool. And then you guys go on. And I'm immediately fixed on you because I love B3.
Oh, yeah.
I've always loved B3.
Yeah.
I think any band that has B3 is the next level. I come from not the blues, although I do love Stevie and all that. I come from that era of Allman Brothers.
Right.
Benmont Tench.
Right.
Who's been here. Where you've got these great, you know, Springsteen, the E Street Band.
And Oregon was, when we came up in the 70s, right? Like you think of the 70s, all those hits, all those, you know, Bob Seger, Great Oregon. Chicago.
Deep Purple.
Boston.
Right. Heavy
like,
B3.
Lots of B3 on all that stuff. Tom Petty. I mean.
Tom Petty.
You heard the organ. So even if people don't really know what a B3 is, you know what it is because it's on all those records.
It's underrated. It's to me more valuable than the guitar at points because it makes the band another level. All of a sudden you're like, I don't know what this is, but this band sounds way more professional than this band. Isn't that weird? Because it lays this blanket down that a guy can sing over.
Yeah.
And he just gets in, you know. It's just like, if you think of like any Petty.
Yeah.
And then when the chorus comes, it always ramps up with the Hammond, with the Leslie spinning.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Down, you know?
Yeah. Oh, man. The Tom Petty stuff. I mean, damn the torpedoes.
Oh.
That whole thing. Like, absolutely. Well, it's like glue, you know, musical glue. Holds a lot of stuff together, like sonically, I think.
Big time.
And so what already sounds good is probably going to sound a little bit better if you put B3 on it.
Oh, it changed my whole way of looking, especially what I really relate to is, of course, I knew all the 70s guys, and I loved all that. But when Black Crowes, which is kind of my era of rock and roll, starts hitting, because I love the Stones and Chuck Leavell and all that stuff. Chuck played more, you know, boogie-woogie piano and stuff.
Right.
But once the Black Crowes get Ed and they put out Southern Harmony, which is, I don't know if you know that record, but it's all kinds of B3 in there.
Right.
I was like, oh, these are guys kind of my age. And Wallflowers with Rami Jaffe.
Yeah,
here's heavy-duty B3.
Yeah.
Here's Charlie from the Counting Crows.
Right.
And all of that.
Yeah.
And they're all coming from the band.
Right.
And all that stuff.
Yeah.
And those three groups really opened my eyes of like, oh, we got to get a B3 player.
Right.
And as much as a pain in the ass it was because of nightclubs, real small stages and heavy.
Yeah.
It was automatically just so much better.
Yeah.
So then when I walk in and I see it, you got the white Leslie, you got the white B3, you look great. I go, who's this fucking guy? And you start playing, and especially, I wanted to say, the first track on your record, The Devil Beats His Wife.
Oh, right.
That is the ultimate type of B3 music I can listen to all day long.
Oh, right. Yeah.
I used to have records. I couldn't remember this guy. I was hitting my B3 player today. I had a record, and I can't find it anywhere, where it was this guy, and all the songs were like that, the whole record. And I played it.
Wow.
I forget his name.
Maybe I wonder if it was Dr. Lonnie Smith or Larry Young or one of those guys.
Yeah, but those guys would put out those great B3 trio kind of organ trio bands.
Man, there's so many. I mean, we could sit here for hours and I could just go on about all the greats because there was a tradition. I mean, there's a lot of. Here's the other thing. It's like if you said, hey, you play guitar, right? Well, people know there's a lot of different kinds and styles of guitar playing, right? I mean, it's endless. But if you say, well, I play Hammond B3, they think it's all one style. Well, really, in actuality, there's just tons of different styles. So I actually, when I started playing the B3, I picked a style. Like, this is what I want to do, like, which was the organ trio where the guy plays the foot pedals, bass, left-hand bass, and it's self-contained. It's not Booker T, right? It's not Greg Allman. I mean,
it's not rock and roll B3.
Right. It's not rock and roll B3, but it's a specific style. So, like Jack McDuff, Jimmie Smith, of course, being the king of all kings. He invented it. I mean, he didn't invent it, but to go way back, I mean, it was really, a guy named Wild Bill Davis that invented that style. And he did the foot pedals. He made it swing. And he invented kind of a big band way of sounding on the organ. All the stops out. You know that saying, all stops out.
Yeah.
You pull them all out, and it just sounds huge.
It's monstrous.
And he played block chords. Like, it's really difficult to do because he's playing all chordally as opposed to single notes.
He's not doing single notes.
He's not doing single notes. So, like, a guy like him, and then later Bill Doggett came on. And he was kind of playing that way, but maybe some more single notes. But they did beautiful ballads. I mean, like Bill Doggett does great ballads. But then it went to Jimmie Smith, and then it became single notes. And he would be swinging that bass line so fast and playing on the top of it. I mean, what he did was really, if you want to talk about John Coltrane, Jimmie Smith is an equal at least.
Right.
Because John Coltrane didn't have to play bass at the same time.
Yeah.
And harmonically, he invented a lot of that language that Coltrane used. Coltrane did play with Jimmie Smith in a short span. And he said he used to wake up in the middle of the night and hear the B3 screaming in his ears,
Yeah.
So there's all those guys. But my favorite out of all the jazz blues guys who played in that style, personally, my favorite was a guy named Big John Patton.
He's amazing.
There was really three. Him, Babyface Willette, and another guy named Freddie Roach. And so when I started playing the B3 at Antone's, I had heard all the stories from the older guys at Antone's. Man, you should have been here when Muddy Waters was here.
Wow.
Right? You should have been here when Jimmy Reed and Eddie Taylor were here.
Jimmy Reed.
Because those guys had passed away. Well, these guys got to hang out with all of them. Well, the time I started playing organ, Jimmie Smith was still alive. Jack McDuff was still alive. Jimmy McGriff was still alive. Big John Patton was still alive. Like, these guys were still around, and they were still playing. And so I got to see them. I went and saw Jimmie Smith, and I opened up for him one time. The first time I opened for him, I'd only been playing a couple years, and I kept praying, like, I hope Jimmie Smith doesn't come in early.
Yeah, you don't want him to see you.
Well, if you're the headliner, most of the time you're skipping the opening band.
Of course.
You're taking a shower at the hotel, whatever, you get there in time to play. So I was praying for that. And I remember at a certain point I looked over at the drummer, and standing right behind the drummer was Jimmie Smith watching. And I stopped playing, like in the middle of a song. I just stopped. But he was real nice later on after the club cleared out. He sat me down. He goes, come here. And he got down and he sat on the bench, turned the B3 on. He goes, here, sit on the bench with me. It was just me and Jimmie, and the place was cleared out. And he played solo for probably 30 minutes with me on the bench.
That's incredible.
And then he turned to me and goes, it's just the blues. And I was thinking, that's not the blues I've heard. I mean, it was unbelievable. So I got to meet those guys, Jack McDuff, and Jimmy McGriff, and they showed me stuff. And I got to see how they did it. Because it's one thing to watch a YouTube video or hear a record. You think you could get it from that.
You think you know what they're doing.
You think.
And the YouTube guys are always a little off.
Right, and you can get a lot. I mean, if I had YouTube, when I was starting, it would have saved me a lot of time. I mean, but to see those guys that's why, that was a big reason for me to switch to organ, because they were still alive. I mean, I went up and found Big John Patton and lived with him, and he really taught me how to play.
You moved in with him?
Well, I was living up in Boston, so what I would do, I mean, I've lived in Texas my whole life. I lived in Boston for about a year and a half. And
for
so,
what? Just
well, at the time I was married, my wife walked in and said, "Hey, we're going to move to Boston." And I thought, "Oh, that sounds cold,
Yeah.
And so we did, but at that time, that's when I went and found Big John Patton. He was living in New Jersey, Montclair, New Jersey, right across from New York City. And I would go on the weekends and live with him and his wife, Thelma.
And he would teach you?
And it wasn't even teaching. He was one of those guys who, I've only been around a few of them. He would get up in the morning and he would sit down at his instrument and he would play it until he went to bed. And he did that every day.
No shit?
So when I stayed with him, we'd get up, he would sit down and start showing me things and playing. And, after 2 or 3 hours, if you're trying to learn, your brain is finished,
Yep.
Well, it's only, 2 in the afternoon by then, and we weren't going to knock off till 9 or 10 at night. And so that's the type of player he was. That's why he was so great. I mean,
he would just go and play all day on his own?
All day.
Whoa. What? Imagine his hearing.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I know, right?
Just,
Yeah. Well, he had it pretty soft. But he had a B3. The B3 I have in my house now is the B3. It was his B3, because after he passed away, his wife, Thelma, gave me that B3.
Dude, that's incredible. You got your idols. That would be like if I had, when I was playing music, if like Bruce just gave me his 52 Teller or something. I mean,
right.
You have your idols B3.
Yeah,
place.
Exactly. And it's such a great B3 too, because a lot of guys, you would have a number of them over the years. I mean, but that one was real beat up, and he had it. He only had 2 his whole life. And he said, we were playing one day and I noticed it had, it has an emblem that says Hammond, in between the 2 manuals, it says Hammond. But then on the far right, it said Macy's, which I had never seen, written, embossed, like the Hammond logo was the same thing. And so I said, I've never seen one that said Macy's. He said, well, I had a B2. He called it an ebony B2. It was black. And they were going down the road, and it fell out of the trailer on the turnpike, and it exploded into a million pieces. So at that time, he was playing with Lou Donaldson, with Grant Green was the guitar player. And he said, yeah, me and Grant just went downtown New York and went to Macy's. They sold B3s. And he said, we went and bought this B3, and it's the same. So that's the same one. He had that one since 1963.
Oh man! And Macy's had theirs with their name on it.
Exactly.
That's
so
sick.
if you were now since then I've played a lot of B3s, because you'll rent them. If we go on the road or we fly in, they'll rent one. So
yeah, of course,
you get different
SRR
ones.
rentals and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Cartage.
And so since then I've seen different like big music stores. Anybody that bought bulk B3s back then, you might have your store name on there.
Oh, wow.
So I've seen different ones with different names, music store names, but it's the only one I've seen with a Macy's. But they did sell B3s, but that's how popular Hammond organs were back then. They were selling them at Macy's.
I think my first introduction to B3 was Lawrence Welk.
Yeah, right?
Oh, yeah, big time. Because I'd be at my grandma and grandpa's on Sunday.
Yeah.
They'd throw this damn show on at like 5. And boy, was that thing just ringing. Lawrence would be like, this next song we're going to do is sa-da-la-la, sa-da. And then here comes the organ, just full on.
And that was a cool show, because I watched it.
Yeah.
People forget, we didn't have a lot of entertainment, right?
Nope.
We created, that's why we became musicians, right? There was nothing else to do. You either played sports, or I guess you played guitar or something.
100%.
Because you just ran out of stuff to do. But
as far as 4 channels.
Yeah, there was 4 channels. And so when Lawrence, if you liked music, even if you were a kid and it wasn't, your type of music, but we would always watch Lawrence Welk.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. And he had that organ player. He had great people on there.
Hee Haw.
And Hee Haw was big.
And Lawrence Welk, and then, on the weekend, it would be the Midnight Special, or
Yeah.
you would just grab music anywhere you could.
Yeah, Wolfman Jack and the
Oh.
Midnight Special.
Yeah, great stuff, man.
Killer.
And then Saturday Night Live would have bands. So anywhere you could see a band.
Right. And then you would Saturday morning after, cartoons with Soul Train.
Yeah, Soul Train and American Bandstand.
Bandstand.
Yeah, Don Cornelius
Yeah.
is what I mean, he turned me on to so much great music. Even recently I was watching that Elton John film. I forgot Elton John played on there, but all that
Right.
70s soul of Earth, Wind and Fire, and they got killer B3, you know, all that R&B. And then there's an era where James Brown was playing B3. I don't know if you ever saw it, like 72.
Absolutely. And he was a killer B3 player. Like,
Dude, that's my favorite era, James Brown.
Yeah.
He's over there just murdering it on the B3.
we were just talking about this. Who was it? I was talking to Gibbons about it.
Yeah.
Billy Gibbons. He was talking about watching listening to an old James Brown show, and he would come out, like the first thing he did was he would sit down at the B3 and play a little bit. The band's cooking.
That's what he
He
did.
would hit some, badass shit on the B3.
Yeah.
And it was just cool, man.
I saw that same shit on one of the documentaries of James Brown, because I love the JB's era, you know, with Bootsy and stuff, that Love, Power, Soul,
Right.
Live in Paris era. And then if you see that footage, that's what he does. He comes out, he sits on the B3, he's got the badass suit,
Right.
he's got a killer fro,
Oh.
he looks cool.
So
and
cool.
he's just laying down B3, like,
Yep.
I'll show you fools how it's done.
Yeah.
And then he gets out there, it's a man's world.
Yeah.
And they're going, what the fuck?
Yeah, and then Bobby Bird would sit
Bobby
down at the
Bird.
B3,
Oh,
right?
unbelievable.
And then he'd play B3,
Yeah.
and it was super cool. Like, check out James Brown, "Devil's Den." That's so cool. That song,
Yeah.
"Devil's Den," where he's playing B3. It's just like nasty, man.
And also, one of my favorite James Brown things ever is when he's calling out for B3, he'll say, Samoga,
Yeah,
Samoga, Samoga.
Yeah.
I didn't know what he was ever saying there. I thought he was saying some more, but it
Right.
was some organ.
Yeah.
Samoga,
Yeah.
Samoga. And I didn't notice till I saw the documentary. I went, oh, all these years he was saying some organ.
Right.
I fucking love that.
man. Talk about. And now, these days, like, almost everything's funky, right? Like,
Yeah.
we live in, like, funk or soul. Like, every band in Austin, every, club I go into, it's a funk band. It's a soul band. But not that long ago, you couldn't hear that stuff. Nobody was doing it, really.
No.
I mean, but James Brown, watch Mother Popcorn, like, from a TV show.
It's insane.
And everybody in the band, what is lost on a lot of bands now. I mean, the Dap Kings did it right. They know how to do that stuff. They studied it like scientists, and they can perform that. And they know the keys to how to make that big band funk music work. And
Right.
and how they do it is everybody picks a part, a musical part, a drum part, bass part, and it's all locking together, and no one changes their part, right? That's what guys miss when I hear modern funk bands. Everybody's changing what they're doing,
Yeah.
and nothing, like, it's got a groove and stuff. But those guys, if you were the guitar player going chink-a-tink-a-chink, you did that for
That's all you did.
17 minutes.
That's all you did.
That's what you did.
Chicken.
And if you did
Yeah.
you did that for 17 minutes. You never changed your part. That's a generalization, but it's true, and it became so hypnotic when you would hear all those interlocking parts going and nobody changing anything.
Oh, it's a heartbeat.
Oh,
It's a
crazy.
heartbeat, man.
Yeah.
It's who really can get that going right now is St. Paul and the Broken Bones. They're
I'm not that familiar. I mean,
yeah, but they get it. They're out of Alabama and they
Right.
understand what's going on. There are some people out there that can do it. I got to tell you though, when I saw you play, I was just floored because I love B3 so much, and of course I love Jimmie. Jimmie's a master, and I think that it was so amazing to go to this C-Boys
yeah,
place
C-Boys, yeah.
and just see fucking masters. And this, what I love about it is what I call lifers.
Right.
You, Jimmie. I forget who the drummer was.
Well, at that time, it was probably, I think it was
He was
George.
brand new. No, this
Oh.
guy was playing his first gig.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, because the other guy had left or whatever.
George Rains had played with Jimmie for 30 years, talk about a lifer, and he was just the Texas shuffle drummer. He was really a legendary guy, and he retired. He was in his 70s.
Right.
And he had just retired. So we were looking for a drummer. At that time, we had to go through, I don't know who was with us at that time. You saw us because we went through, it was just like we played with everyone in town and then some. And it was tough because, and now we have a great drummer. His name's Jason Corbier. Great young drummer. I mean, not that young. I think he's probably in his 30s, but it was tough to find him because it's a certain thing, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's very specific. And I think when you're coming up in music, generally, if you're making a living playing music, you're trying to make a living, you do a lot of different kinds of music.
You try to adapt to
Well, you
everything.
have to play a
Paid
lot of gigs.
yeah.
And so then at some point, you're maybe, like you say, jack of all trades, master of... You're playing a lot. You're good at a lot of different styles. But when it comes to playing with somebody like Jimmie Vaughan, right?
Yeah.
You have to really know that stuff. You have to know that
Jimmy's going to be
music,
like, nope. Just one verse. Nope.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's serious. He's as serious as it gets when it comes to blues. And he knows... I mean, a lot of times we'll have people that will come up and sit in maybe to sing or something.
Yeah.
And they may call off any blues song, and you have to know every blues song. I mean, you just have to be able to because Jimmie can.
Yeah.
And so if you're the drummer, you have to know what the drum part is, and you have to know the difference between all the different shuffles and all the different beats, because blues is so drastically different. I mean, mostly people say, "Oh, blues, that's boring," and it's just they think of a slow blues.
It's like Stormy Monday.
Yeah,
they're like, oh yeah,
God,
Stormy Monday.
right.
Here it comes. Yeah.
But in Texas, and there's so many different kinds of blues. It's really regional.
oh yeah,
Texas
Chicago,
blues, Chicago
Texas
blues. And Texas is unique because it's right next to Louisiana. So you have those influences like the blues guys and swamp pop. So you had like Slim Harpo and Lonesome Sundown and Lazy Lester. And I saw Lazy Lester for so many years in Austin. Great harmonica player, singer. And their sound was really influenced a lot by country music. It was blues, but it had a story and it had a certain melody. And it was different from Chicago blues,
Right.
or from Mississippi blues, or from West Coast blues, which is more like jump blues. But Texas was in the middle, so it had a lot of horn bands. And so when you did Texas blues, it took from the north, it took from Louisiana, and it kind of has that trail that goes out west, that connection. I mean, T-Bone Walker moved to Los Angeles,
right.
His career, but he was from Oak Cliff, same place that Jimmie and Stevie are from in Dallas. So, there's just such history, and you have Houston, and you have the Duke Records label, so you have Bobby Blue Bland doing I Woke Up Screaming, and B.B. King cutting stuff down there, and, Lavelle White, and, Johnny Copeland, and, Johnny Guitar Watson.
Oh, smoker.
So there's...
I got way into like James Cotton.
Cotton.
Well, I was in this harmonica world for a while where I just wanted to play harp.
Yeah.
And James Cotton and I really loved Mick Jagger's. I mean, this guy Mick Jagger could play the fucking shit out of a harp, and you're like, "Where's this guy getting this?" And then you start digging in.
Well, exactly.
And they go, "Oh, this is where this guy's getting this." I mean, there's Jagger's from, London or whatever,
right?
And the guy could play authentic, swampy harmonica.
Well, there was a band that I was in. I was not on the record, called the Red Devils.
Oh,
that
I love
was out
it.
of
The Rick Rubin stuff, yeah.
Right. What happened was I did not record on that, but they went out to support the King album.
Yeah.
And they're on the U.S. tour. It had just come out, and their first stop was Austin, and Dave Lee Bartell and Lester Butler, the singer, got into a fight, and Dave Lee said, "Fuck this," and quit and left. And their next gig was in Dallas, and the guitar player, Paul Size, who was a friend of mine from Dallas, called me up, said, "Hey, can you So what ended up happening, I toured that whole U.S. tour with the Red Devils.
Wow.
In that band.
So they went out without Jagger.
So Jagger came later. What happened was after they got back to L.A., I ended up going back to Texas.
Yeah.
And they cut a whole album with
live
Mick Jagger.
Mick
Jagger playing harp, right? And
Yeah.
singing, and they're just doing low down blues, and it's great, right?
Oh yeah, it was killer. At the time it didn't come out, but it was bootlegged all over.
Yeah.
My buddy was like, "Here," because I loved anything Rick Rubin did.
Yeah.
I'm like, check this shit out. Jagger did a blues record,
Right.
and that was it.
And that was a great band, man.
Smoking, right?
Really, I mean, probably the last great blues band, on a major label. I mean, Warner Brothers, and that was, those guys were for real. I mean, that was a wild tour. Lester died of a heroin overdose not too many years after that.
Damn.
And there was a lot of drugs and infighting and craziness in that band, just like you kind of want it for a blues band, right?
Right.
Like, they really lived it. I mean, when Lester was singing about walking through the graveyard to meet his friends, like, he was serious. He had died 3 times already, technically, overdosed.
Oh shit.
Supposedly, one story is he woke up under the sheet. Like, they had already,
fuck. They thought he was
in
done.
the morgue. Like, yeah.
Holy smokes.
But
you don't get any more blues than that.
You don't, right? And those guys were very serious. And I think that's the thing about blues is, a lot of these people, when I saw Albert Collins or Junior Wells, I got to play with Junior Wells, or even now we tour with Buddy Guy, like we were just doing a tour with Buddy Guy. I mean, when those guys walked in the room, they were serious. They were mean-looking guys. I mean, when you saw Albert King, you didn't think you were just going to walk up to him and start talking. I mean, and John Patton was like that too, as far as organ players. Jimmy Smith, they looked like serious. That's part of the thing that drew me to that music was these guys weren't fucking around, you know? It wasn't fun. I mean, it was fun. They were great showmen and great entertainers, but they were doing it to express themselves, right? Like,
get some anger out.
And get some anger out and entertain and do that. But it was getting their, they would call that now being an artist, art. They didn't call it then. It was just these guys were bad dudes.
It was like blue-collar blues, man. It was just what they did. It was their job.
Yeah.
And they were getting ripped off a lot of times. They're playing in these shitholes.
Unbelievable.
And they're going through the whole race thing for years.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And then just complete soldiers. And that takes me back to the Seaboys place,
right?
Where I was just like, these guys are lifers right here. They don't have to come down here and play on a Saturday night. I mean,
right? Like when we're off the road, you don't have to go play. But Jimmie, he's another guy that he plays his guitar all day, every day of his life. I've been to his house hundreds of times. I've never walked in where he didn't have a guitar in his hands and he wasn't playing it. And so when he's in town, he wants to play. He wants a gig because it's also like being an athlete. You have to do it. Like
you got it. It's like a comedian too.
Right. You have to keep all those the muscle memory has to be there. You've got you've got microseconds. You can't be lax. So you have to play. Like you're a lifer. Like we're all lifers, right? Like you get to a certain point, you're like, okay, this is it.
Yeah.
And I have to do it. And for good or bad, this is what it is. So I'm like you. I like seeing lifers. Like I like going into a place. I mean, I went into a place last night. I was in Santa Monica.
Oh yeah.
And
that place there on
Harvell's.
Yeah. I saw your thing, but I know that room. Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't know that place. I was standing on the corner, and I was like, man, because like when I go see music, like I want to go see. I would like to see blues.
Right.
I'd like to see, old school jazz maybe. Like there's not a lot. I mean, I would love to see some great rock and roll and stuff, but I don't want to go to hear a DJ. I don't want to hear you know what I mean? Like I don't want to hear a rap band or a soul funk band necessarily.
Yeah.
But so I walked in and then I just walked by that place, and you talk about lifers. I forget the guy's name. I think it was Larry Fuzzy. Gosh, someone will know it out there. I mean, he's probably an iconic guy. I was kind of reading about him online afterwards. And when I didn't know the band at all, I had 4 horn players, drums, bass, guitar, keyboards, and then later on, these 3 singers came out who were fabulous. But just when the band walked on, right, like the bass player, you know, he had his hair done. It was dyed. It was parted down the middle and kind of feathered back.
Yeah.
He had like a Cheech and Chong vest.
Yeah.
He had some striped pants. Like,
Yeah.
he was an older guy. Like, you could tell this guy's in show, but like, he's done it. This guy's a lifer. He played with a thumb pick, his bass, and he played
thumb pick.
He played with incredible bass lines. Like, and they started off and they kicked it off with T-Bone Walker, Natural Ball, and he was singing it, and he could sing, and he knew it. And they did a lot of stuff. I mean, they did like Buddy Miles changes.
Killer.
But they were great. And you could tell this guy was from, you know, I mean, for lack of a better term, like the hippie era. But he had grown up. I'd read like had went and saw Ike and Tina and Chuck Berry, and you know, when he was a kid, like
that
in
was his
St.
stuff.
Louis.
Yeah.
Like, this guy was a lifer, right? Like, he's not going to be doing something else.
No.
He's going to be at Harvell's playing, which is great. Because you can't get that from someone else. Like, you can't get that experience.
And thank God there's a room he can do that in.
Yeah.
That's another fucking thing. It's a combination.
Right.
It's the players and then it's the room. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, the owner gets it. He's going to have live music. He's
Man.
not just going to have a jukebox and a dude come in and DJ
Man,
for the
that's-
night.
it's
You
90% of it.
It's a hand-in-hand thing. And that's a thing that dries up in the, especially if we get into the landscape of Austin, San
Right.
Francisco, Los Angeles, where the real estate is just crazy.
Yeah.
And they go, you know, I got offered like $5 million for this dirt plot there where that place is.
Right.
I'm out of here. I mean, that is what has happened in San Francisco. All the
Absolutely.
great rooms just gone.
Well, in Austin, too.
Austin,
I mean,
of course.
They
Austin.
had, you know, the Saxon Pub, which is iconic place, been there forever. It was about to go under, and I think the guy from Keller Williams Real Estate, you know, stepped in and bought it and said, hey, Austin needs this place, and you can still go. It's still there. Still, you know, the same bands. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
Austin iconic lifers. You know,
need
they're
the
playing
heroes
at
like that.
And had that place gone by the wayside, that's what was going to happen. That whole chunk of Austin would have been gone. But thankfully, you have like Steve Wertheimer owns the Continental Club. You know, these guys are lifers too. I mean, they're there for the music, which is really rare. You know, and I know, whether you're in comedy or whether you're in music, like I would say there are no clubs. There are only club owners.
You're so right.
Steve could close down his club tomorrow and go open one across the street, and that's the one you'd go to.
Yeah, because it's the guy.
Because it's the guy.
Yeah.
And he loved music. And I mean, I owe my career really to him. I mean, a lot of people, but especially him, because.
He was letting you do weekends, right?
Well, what happened was, so I had the B3, right? I'd gotten back.
From the Doyle tour.
Well, oh, yeah. And then I started playing at Antone's. I mean, I was kind of around, but then I'd moved to Boston. I'd kind of hung out with John Patton. I came back the next year, and I knew you will never be any good unless you are out gigging on this thing all the time. Well, if you have a B3, it weighs 350, 400 pounds all in, and you got to carry it. You got a trailer. You got to hook it up. So I was doing that, and nobody knew really what an organ trio was. Like, we were just doing instrumentals. Like, we weren't really singing, and I was just trying to learn to play. And so I would go into places, like there was a place called Nasty's, and there was a place called the Poodle Dog Lounge, and they didn't even have bands mostly. And I would just ask, okay, well, you could come play for free on this night or this other night. But you couldn't do that. I couldn't play enough. I mean, I was dragging this thing around to this place and that place and the other place, and by the end of it, you felt like a furniture mover more than a musician. So Steve Wertheimer jumped in. He liked what I was trying to do, and he gave me a gig. He opened up a place really just for the B3 above the Continental Club. It was a storeroom. It was, and he made it into this little club. It only held like 50, 60 people, called the Continental Gallery, and we put the B3 in there, and I played 4 nights a week, Thursday through Sunday, and I was the only one in there. We didn't even have lights. Like, I had to go to Home Depot and buy lights.
Wow.
And so you could see the band, and nobody knew. It was kind of like word of mouth. And then it slowly picked up. And now, it's an iconic spot, and it's 7 nights a week. And
It's incredible.
And it's a great listening room. So between that, and there was a drummer named Frosty, who's a tremendous drummer. And at that time, he was late 60s, 70 maybe. And he was really the best drummer in town. You would call Frosty, Barry Frosty Smith. He played with everybody, and I was making $20 a night, maybe $20-$30.
Yeah.
And who wants to be? I couldn't get guys to play, and you had to be a good player to play that room. And Frosty finally, I called him out of desperation. He said, you know what? He loved that kind of music. He liked what I was trying to do. He grew up on organ trios in the Bay Area out here, and he said, I'll play with you every night. And
Wow.
he did, and we played together probably for 7 or 8 years.
That's incredible, man.
And that's
with the legend Frosty.
and with the legend, and he made my life easy, and he saved between him and Wertheimer. That's wherever I am now. It's because of guys like that. Because I had people talk about your 10,000 hours.
Yep.
Which is true. I mean, I think more or less. I don't know what the number would be, but we played up there 3-4 nights a week, 2 long sets a night for years, and I never missed a weekend. I was too afraid if I left and someone else played that I would lose the gig, so I would never not play.
Oh.
And sometimes we'd play to nobody, one person.
Oh,
I mean, the first time, and nothing happened. Let me, for the rest of the story, nothing happened for me for 7 years. I mean, I was in that room playing that B3.
That was like your
learning.
open mic.
Right, that was it. And that's how I really learned, because the B3 is a hard instrument when you're trying to play bass, and you're trying to do all, and you're trying to make it sound good and feel good and all that. And that's where Jimmie Vaughan came up and saw me. That's where Billy Gibbons came up and saw me. And
That's where Billy and Jimmie saw you?
Yeah, that's how it all kind of started, because then it started happening. So Jimmie had asked me that he was playing the Crossroads Festival at Madison Square Garden, and he asked me would I come play on that.
Oh my God, the Garden.
I had been playing in this little room that held 50 people. I'd been in there for 7 or 8 years, and I didn't play other gigs. That's what I did, right? And
did you have a day job?
No.
Holy
I just
shit.
did that. I was just poor.
Yeah.
I was really poor,
I love it.
And so I'll never forget, I played my regular gig in the gallery there on a Sunday night, and one guy was there, the audience.
One guy.
The audience.
Yeah.
And then he left. And then we just kind of stopped playing. It was towards the end of the night. And then my next gig was I think that Wednesday, and it was at Madison Square Garden, and it was where they have the rotisserie stage.
Oh, yeah.
And so you're set up.
And then it spins when
and
you're
then
on.
it spins in. Well, I had just played to one guy who left, a few days before.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting at the B3, and it's spinning into a sold-out Madison Square Garden, right? It was going from 0 to, 1,000,000 miles an hour.
And the Garden, the most prestigious room in America.
Unbelievable.
Oh, fuck. And how long did you play? Did you guys do 2-3 songs, or?
I can't. Yeah, I mean, we did. I can't remember the number.
But
5,
still,
6
just
songs.
mind-boggling.
Absolutely.
And with Jimmie Vaughan, absolute legend.
Right. And I remember Little Doyle was there. They had these tiny side stages while they would twirl the stage.
Yeah.
They would do a side stage thing. And I remember as we were twirling around, Doyle Bramhall II and John Mayer were doing this acoustic duo thing where they were singing, Change It. They were singing those big Doyle songs, the CD songs. Yeah. So they did a couple of those, and then we played. But yeah. And then after that, I always say nothing happened to me really until I was 50.
Holy shit, you're 51 now.
And then everything,
51?
55.
55, I got you. Okay, I'm 53.
So
So not until 5 years ago.
Not really. I mean, I did play and things were going on, and it wasn't but I'm just saying it all happened at once, because when I played Madison Square Garden, and then Billy invited me to play with ZZ Top at Montreux Jazz Festival 2 months later. Right. Yeah. And then things started happening. It snowballed. It all hit at once. You know how that whole thing oh, don't be nervous, right?
Yeah.
You're like, don't be nervous.
I love
and
that.
you're like, fuck you, don't be nervous. Like, what makes you nervous is when you know you're not ready.
Oh, you're so right. You're so right.
Right? Like,
Oh my God.
but when you're ready,
yeah,
you're not fucking nervous. So I was never nervous because I was like, this is easy.
Thousands
I was
of
like,
hours.
yeah, this is what I do. Like, this isn't. I'm never nervous. Like, I'm never nervous on a gig because I think, well, this is what I do.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to do it.
Yeah.
You know, and we've played some since then. You know, we did a lot of those Clapton openers. I mean, lots. Madison Square Garden, LA Forum. We just did a little run, Vegas and San Francisco. And I mean, we did Royal Albert Hall, you know, in London this year, opening for Clapton. I mean, but I'm never nervous because I love being out. You know, this is what I'm here to do.
Yep.
I finally get to do it. I'm out of that little room.
That's so great.
Right?
I love
Like,
that fucking story.
I got out of the room.
There's only a handful of B3 players in the world, it seems like.
There's, you know, there are some tremendous B3 players. I mean, really a lot of great guys out there doing it. I think what I do, and Jimmie helped me think this through. I mean, I was already thinking this way was because I would see guys play, and I also was being a guitar player earlier. Like, I knew what I wanted an organ player to do if you were playing guitar. Like, and maybe when I heard guys do it, they weren't doing it what I thought, well, maybe it should be this other way. So, like, I had a specific thing in my head of, like, this is how I want to play. I don't want to play like Jimmy Smith and Jack McDuff, kind of the easy go-to guys. Like, and that's not easy. I mean, I'm not saying I can do it.
Yeah.
But I've gone through those phases where I've tried to do these different styles. But at a certain point, I had to realize, and Jimmie's very good at this because he had Buddy Guy was his big influence, and B.B. King and Eddie Taylor. But when you hear Jimmie Vaughan, you know it's Jimmie Vaughan.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying I've gotten there, but I definitely made a decision. What do I want to hear? What do I sound like?
Yep.
I don't want to sound like just an organ player.
It's like comedians. They call it finding your voice.
Exactly.
You finally go, oh, wow, this guy is exactly who he is on stage and off stage.
Yes.
You go eat with this guy. He doesn't turn something on. And,
No.
And that was a big problem, I think, with guitar players once Stevie hit or once Eddie Van Halen hits.
Right.
Hendrix, it didn't really happen because people were like, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. But eventually people caught up. And then Eddie hits, and then everybody sounds like Eddie.
Right.
And everybody sounds like, Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Right.
And then there's these dudes that go, wow, this guy doesn't sound like anybody.
Right.
And that's what you want. And when you were playing, I was like, this guy's incredible.
Oh,
I mean, I was just like this. It was funny because I love Jimmie Vaughan, and Mark Maron was like, "Yo, wait till you see Jimmie. I went last month. Oh, Jimmie,
Yeah.
that's one of Maron's main guys."
Right.
And I love Jimmie.
Yeah.
And I love the guitar, but I kept going like, "Oh, but I love B3. You don't see this every day over here, you know."
Thank God for you, man.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, right? I mean, not everybody. It's obviously we live in a guitar world, which is great, but. And I love guitar players. I love
them.
And I learned so much from these guys because at a certain point it's just music, right? Like you're trying to figure out how to play music. We get into this because we love certain people, right? Like
totally.
If you loved Stevie Ray Vaughan, or if you loved Albert King,
it drives you
or
to
if
buy
you
an
loved
instrument.
Robert Johnson, whatever it was, or if you liked Richard Pryor, whoever the idol is. Right? But at a certain point, you have to not be like them.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest thing. So when you see anybody do it, like whether it's a musician or a comedian, an artist who has broken free of the shackles of his influences.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Which is really hard to do because you're a huge fan of music and of all these people. Like, that's why we do it. But when you finally... And I'm not saying I'm there yet, but that's where I want to be.
Yeah.
And
as long as you're striving for that, you're going to keep shedding away those influences as far as in your, style.
Right.
They're in you, but they're not in, like, you don't go like, oh, I know what he's doing here.
Right.
And I mean, if you look at early Richard Pryor, he's dead on Bill Cosby.
Right.
I mean, he's dead on Bill Cosby because, that was the kind of the mold.
Yeah.
And if you look at any kind of early guitar players, whenever you go see a band, you go, oh, well, this guy's total Angus Young. And, you get what's going on.
Yeah.
And then, like if I look at Jack White right now,
Yeah.
he is Jack White.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And you could hear a guy that go, oh, he sounds like Jack White, but you don't look at Jack White and think he sounds like somebody
He
else.
doesn't sound like anybody.
He had such a unique,
Yeah.
viewpoint.
100%. Josh Homme, Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, well, he has his sound, and it's really hard to get there.
And
you
it's
know?
tremendous to see when someone does it. Jimmie had a great line. Someone asked about getting your own style, and he said, well, when you get your own style, he goes, you got to think about what you want to hear, and that's what you're trying to get to. And he said, you may not even like your own style at first, which I thought was very interesting, because chances are you're not going to like your own style at first, because it's going to seem, at least in your own mind, to pale in comparison to your idols.
Yeah, nobody likes their voice when they first hear it. When they
Right.
solo you up in the studio,
Yeah.
they go, let's that might be a little pitchy. Let's listen. They solo it up. You go, no,
Right.
because it's your voice right there, and they go, that doesn't sound anything like Bon Scott.
Right. But you somehow you get past that and embrace it. And so when you see guys that have pulled their own style out of things, it's tremendous to see,
Yeah.
And then they affect other people, and other people start imitating them.
Yeah. Did you ever play with Stevie?
I never did. Matter of fact, I never met Stevie.
Whoa.
I had a close encounter one time, and he was in Dallas when I was in Dallas too. I had some, we used to see a band called Anson and the Rockets. And Anson Funderburg was, and still is, one of the best guitar players you'll ever see. And he had a guy singing with him, Sam Myers, and that was the band in Dallas, blues band. And they used to play a place called Poor David's Pub every Monday. And so we would always go down, right, and see Anson. And then one weekend I didn't go, or one Monday I didn't go. And Stevie showed up and sat in. They were showing me pictures, like, oh, damn. But I did go to a Ray Charles concert at SMU. And I was up. They had like two balconies. So I was in the upper balcony, not good seats. And Stevie came in with his girlfriend and sat down right next to me.
Whoa.
And so we watched this Ray Charles concert together. I never said anything to him. And then when we were walking down the stairwell to get out of there, we were kind of shoulder to shoulder. People were like, hey, Stevie. And he was waving everybody. And I think it's odd now because Jimmie's one of my best friends, just beyond being my...
Yeah, of course.
We're just friends. But of course, through Jimmie, I feel like I've known Stevie, but I only, had that one close encounter. Although I did see him play many times,
How about Billy Gibbons?
Yeah.
I've met Billy Gibbons many, many times. I absolutely worship Billy Gibbons. I think he's you want to talk about a guy who has a sound. When I put on your record, I didn't even need to look at who was on what tracks.
Right.
Because when they would click through,
right.
And there comes the Drifter, the title track, immediately Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the greatest of all times. And, you're out playing with Billy right now. So what are you doing? You're on tour with him?
Well, I just came out here. We just did kind of this one-off charity event down in Newport Beach. But we're going to do some other things, and then at the end of the year, we do this thing in Austin, the Jungle Show, which is Jimmie and Billy and Sue Foley, the great guitar player, those three guitars, and Chris Slayton from Stevie's band, the drummer.
Oh, wow.
And me. We do it once a year at the end of the year.
Ooh, where's that
at Antone's.
And what date?
27th and 28th.
Fuck.
And we've done it, I think.
Exactly the dates I'm digging.
I know,
in San
right?
Fran. I'm
Exactly.
like, God, I would go to that.
It's great, right? So like we'll do that, and so we're always doing things, things with Billy. I mean, when he tours so much with ZZ Top, so you take it as you get it with Billy. But Billy, when I was what was funny when I was I think 16, living in Denton. I mean, I didn't know anything about show business. I thought you were Michael Jackson or ZZ Top, and then that was kind of it. I didn't know there were other levels of show business.
Yeah, club bands and all that.
All that, like, I worked in a pawn shop, and there were guys in bands. I mean, it just seemed, it's nothing I would have ever thought that I would be a musician. That never entered my consciousness I didn't step on a stage and play a whole gig till I was 25. I mean,
25?
Yeah. I mean,
that is so late.
It was
usually people start. They got the band in the neighborhood,
Exactly.
and then they play like a high school dance.
I was not that guy.
Wow, 25.
Yeah. I mean, I was the guy. I had an acoustic guitar, and then actually I played banjo. I was into bluegrass music. That was kind of my first serious instrument. Like Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs, and I would go around to the little bluegrass festivals in North Texas. And, enter these little the junior banjo, and I would win these and I wouldn't even tell my parents. Like, I won several of these banjo competitions. I never told anyone. Like, I'd just go home and they're like, where are you? Where have you been?
Secret life.
It was so crazy, but
Secret life of a banjo player.
I know, right? But at some point I thought, man, I can't get anywhere with a banjo. Like,
Hey, Joe Garcia, he was the same way.
Yeah. But I remember I used to mow this guy's lawn, and he played guitar, right? Acoustic guitar. And one night after I got done mowing his lawn, he said, yeah, I'm going down. I got a gig. I was like, what do you mean? And he goes, yeah, I'm playing at the Western Sizzler down here, the steakhouse.
The Sizzler.
I'm like, yeah, the Sizzler. I was so blown away.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, I said, they pay you to do that? He said, yeah, I just, kind of in the corner with my acoustic guitar, sing songs, and they pay me to do it. That was a light bulb moment for me. Like, I realized, like, I didn't have, and right about that same time, I was, my sister and her boyfriend were going to see the Rolling Stones at the Cotton Bowl.
Oh, shit, that's the big one, 78?
Big one. Well, this was like
81?
80, I think.
81. Or Tattoo You.
Yeah, something like
ZZ Top opened that, right?
So this was the thing, right?
Yeah, I know that.
Well, I was a big ZZ Top nut.
Yeah.
Like I have a brother that's a year older than me. So we love ZZ Top. That was our favorite band growing up. We love ZZ Top. So I was at the house, and my sister said, I can't go to the show because I got to work all of a sudden at the pizza place.
Yeah.
And so her boyfriend said, her boyfriend said, hey, do you want to come? I was like, hell yeah, because ZZ Top was playing. Well, what I didn't even know at the time. So we got to the Cotton Bowl. We sat in the back of the Cotton Bowl, and I'll never forget, I was rounding around the edge where you could actually see the stage, right, at that point where you come out. And it was Jimmie, Vaughan, and the Fabulous Thunderbirds were playing.
Yeah, they opened.
They opened. Then it was ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Then it was the Stones.
Yeah.
So and I had never seen a concert in my life. Like, I had never seen something like that.
Right.
Like, I saw the Lawrence Welk show, and I had never been to a concert, right? I mean, I was talking to the guy about the Western Sizzler. That's where I was at. And so then I went to this concert, and those were the guys I saw. Little did I know I would go on to play with these guys.
That's crazy. It's the Thunderbirds open.
Yep.
So you play with Jimmie now.
Yeah.
And then ZZ Top.
Yeah.
And this is the first concert you've gone
Ever went to.
That is nuts, dude.
Yeah.
That is nuts.
It was crazy. And then at the time, Ian McLagan was playing B3 with the Rolling Stones.
He was.
And they had, I think it was a rented, I'm not sure. Showco was the big backline place.
I love Showco.
And so they ended up with the B3. I ended up at some point with the Leslie speaker that was used on that. It later got stolen, but like, I even had that for a while. So it was all like,
oh my God, full circle, dude.
Totally full circle. And at that point, I was playing, guitar in my bedroom.
Yeah.
I never thought I would ever meet. You're not going to meet Jimmie Vaughan.
Yeah.
You're not going to meet Billy Gibbons.
Yeah. Now you're playing with them.
Yeah.
And then at 55, you don't even have success till 50. I love your story because it's like me. I started comedy at 44.
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to. I mean, I opened at the LA Forum for Bill Burr,
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, I wasn't even doing this 8 years ago.
How old were you when that happened?
53 now, so 52 years old.
There you go, right?
Crazy.
So, like, we're kind of in the same boat.
I love it.
But I love it, too, because I think it's good when you have your successes later.
Oh, you can handle it.
Because number one, you appreciate it.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you've put in, the time.
Thousands of hours.
And everyone told you.
What are you doing?
You were never the cute 20-year-old.
Not at all.
And the up-and-comer, right? Like, I was never, man, that guy's the next big thing.
Oh, I was the old guy. What's this guy doing? Walking, doing comedy at 44. I was that guy.
Yeah, nobody's supportive right then.
Oh, no.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, when...
But it didn't matter, though.
No.
It didn't matter because they could have said anything they wanted. It touched something in my heart and my mind to where I was like, I don't care what you guys say.
Right.
This is great. Even if they were riling me, I was like, this is great.
Right. Well, you're probably, whatever tools you have or skills or whatever your talent is, at some point in your life, I think anybody that is a performer, whether they're, and success can be measured a lot of different ways. Like,
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right. So I measure success as, well, I wouldn't even say this, but if you are living and you can pay your bills.
Oh, God.
You're a 0.0000001% of the people doing what you do, probably.
Yeah.
So when I was able to pay my bills doing that, that was a big moment. Because there was a moment right before I put out the Drifter record, I thought, well, I can live for 3 more months on what I have.
Right.
And I was planning, because the pawn shop was still open. Glenn McBride was still running the pawn shop up in Denton.
You're going to go back to work.
I thought about it. And I wasn't disillusioned. I just thought, man, I've had a great run. I've done much more than I ever thought I would do, even at that time. And I've made it longer than everyone I know almost doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was bummed about it, but I just was, okay, well, this was it. And so now I'll try and figure out the rest because I can't keep going. But what ended up happening was that's right when everything happened. Like I had been working on that Drifter record. I only had so much money. I put it all into that record. I raised some money to make the record. And then that was it. I was out of money,
Yeah.
I was out of time. I was out of money, and I was making, $240 a week at the gallery probably, plus tips or something.
Yeah, right.
And then things took off.
That's great. You know what? Bill Burr said something to me that sticks in my head every day. He goes, never quit. He goes, look, you might not get something, but if you quit, you're definitely not getting something.
And most people quit.
All of them quit.
Because there's so many good reasons to quit.
Oh, yeah. I always say a $30,000 job will take an artist out in 1 minute.
Right.
They get that one check and they go, oh.
Yeah.
Can you get another guy? I don't know. They made me the manager. And I go, oh, no, they made you the slave.
Yeah.
They gave you the keys and now you're out.
Right.
Now you're out.
Well, it's that dream I think we all had, and you probably can remember a moment when you look around and you see everybody working, you see everybody going to work, you coming back, or they're going on vacation, they're doing what they're doing, what you would say just normal life, right? And if you're a certain type of person, you look at it and you go, I can't do it.
Nope. I can't do it.
And I know everyone who does it says, I don't, a lot of them probably like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But there was just something, I don't want that to be my life. Yeah. And not that people can't be perfectly happy. I mean, some of the happiest people I know, that's their life. And it's great. And they have a wonderful family and they have a wonderful life. And it's beautiful. But I looked and I thought, I don't want that to be my life. I only have this one life that I know of, right?
Yeah.
And I want to try and do something. I don't know what that is. Like,
yeah, I don't either. It's
I don't
something
even
that
know.
Keeps me going, though. There's something in there.
Right.
And I was just talking to John Mayer about it. It's just something that keeps going. It just keeps going. There's something more out there, I keep thinking.
Well, and I also realized, too, it was kind of an epiphany at some point that I didn't have to be the greatest.
Yeah.
I just had to be good enough.
Yeah.
I had to be a good one.
Yep.
Like, I didn't have to be the greatest guy.
Yeah.
And kind of when you let go of that notion, like, man, I have to be great. I have to be an icon, whatever.
Yeah.
When you let go of that and say, I just want to be good and be the best I can be and be good and make a living, then I think something happens.
Oh, yeah. It was funny. I did an interview a couple years ago, and the person opened the interview. We're sitting here with Dean Del Rey. He was a failed musician, but now a comedian. And I said, whoa.
Yeah.
Failed musician? And they go, well, I mean, you stopped playing music. I go, no, I played music 25 years. That's
a
successful.
Success. That's fucking super success.
Just because you measure it by monetary or fame,
right?
You're out of your mind. That is winning in the music business. 25 years.
That's a long time, man.
And I had to fix it right away because it was like there's no failure at all there.
And people want, I think, even people that care about you, no one will discourage you more than the ones closest to you.
Right.
And no one, if you say musician, I used to never tell someone if I just met them and I knew I'd never see him again. I would say, I'm an architect. That's what I would always tell them.
Same with me with comedian.
Because I didn't want to hear about their uncle's band that would, or I didn't want to hear about how they played, whatever. Or
I used to play, and then I had the
but
kid.
Mainly what I didn't want to go through was that thing like, oh, you're a musician. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
What do you really do?
Yeah.
And
I never heard of you. That one?
Well, that's right. Because then you realize, too, like, once you get to success, like, we in my mind, it's like someone says, well, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I just played a show with Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
Or Jimmie Vaughan. They'd say, oh, I don't know who that is. I mean, you'd be surprised. They'd say, well, ZZ Top. Or the Fabulous. They'd be like, no. Oh. Billy gets recognized from Bones, I think. Him being on that show, Bones,
That's
the TV
insane.
show. Almost more than being in ZZ Top these days. I mean, it's so, like, if you're thinking, hey, everybody, I just, we opened for Eric Clapton at Royal Albert Hall.
Yeah.
You think, well, people are going to be, man, but you realize people don't know and they don't really care. And so if that's what you're waiting for, forget about it. Like, it doesn't matter. So be happy with what you're doing in the smallest gig. Oh. And my favorite gigs still to this day are not the big gigs. I mean, we love the big gigs. Who doesn't? But my favorite gigs are the small gigs.
Right.
Because I like to see people dancing. I like to talk to the people. It's like when you were at Seaboys. It's a whole scene.
Oh, it's great.
And
what a place.
You really get to play, and you can kind of do anything you want, and there's no time constraints. And it feels like you're communicating with people, which is the point. Whether you're a comedian, right? When you reach that point where you go, I'm not just doing an act. Like before I had an act, maybe.
Right.
Like, or I had a certain thing I did on stage, like, and this is what I did. At a certain point, I think you reach a certain point where that curtain drops, and what you're really trying to do is talk to people and reach people and get to people, right? Like if I'm playing and I want people to feel that blues, because it makes you feel better, right?
Oh,
or I want them to get up and dance. We're going to play a shuffle and they're going to get up and dance, and everybody's having a good time, or maybe people are listening and they, it really connects with people. Or if you're doing a show, like when you see a good comedian and they're connecting, man, and it makes you laugh about life and go, oh man, what a fucking...
There ain't nothing better.
Right, we're in this life is a shit show we're in, better, right?
Man.
Like
when the whole room is fucking vibrating on the same frequency, music or comedy.
Right.
There ain't nothing better than that. And especially when you're in some town where they don't know you and you walk on stage and an hour later everybody's like completely removed from their problems and who they voted for and their bills.
Exactly.
It's like win. And that is a drug that you can't even describe.
But what the hardest part is, and this, and everybody's faced is, you've done that, right? And now you're in, Flint, Michigan.
Yeah.
I don't want to pick on Flint because we played there recently. It's actually really fun. But now you've done it. You've done your show. You've done everything you wanted to do, and you connected with people. And now, an hour later, you're back at the Holiday Inn Express.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, and there's such a disconnect.
Oh, my
that,
God.
And I've known guys that just couldn't go on tour. They just couldn't do it.
Yeah, you got to figure it out.
Because it's so
The
hard.
juxtapose is brutal. It's like vibrating high and then silence in the room. That's why there's so many drug addicts and alcoholics.
Absolutely.
Pillheads.
How do you
everything.
come down from this?
Yeah.
And now I've got to fall asleep.
Yeah, I got to fall asleep. My flight's at 4. Oh, man,
All that.
this ain't happening.
So people, you don't want to complain because you're in show business. Show business is like, if somebody's working, at the Home Depot, they don't want to listen to us talk about this. But in a real way.
But it is real, though.
Oh, it totally is real.
Yeah. Look, man, I can't thank you enough for doing the show. And I was fired up when I saw you were coming to town. I just reached out right away. Because I thought for sure, one day I'll get him on the show. I'll be in Austin, and I'll just do that. And this was just great timing. And I listened to the Drifter. Everybody get this record. It's on all the streaming platforms. And I'm sure you got vinyl, right?
Yep.
And I tell you, the Drifter is not just an organ trio record. It's not a blues record. It's all different flavors. As a matter of fact, Clem Burke played on it from Blondie.
Yeah.
What a drummer. And then Billy Gibbons is on this record. Gary Clark Jr. This thing is a great record. It's a great ride, and it's I'm so happy to have you here at the house, man.
Well, thanks, man.
You got any gigs coming up besides the ones here at the end of the year you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, the jungle shows. That's kind of the main ones that we're doing. And I think we're playing, me and Jimmie will be back at Seaboys, between now and then.
Yeah.
Trying to think what else. Oh, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. And then next year, we
got a website?
Start it all over. Yep, MikeFlanigin.com, which is, Flanigin is spelled oddly. It's Flanigin.
Yep. And then you have an Instagram. Everybody join up on that.
Yeah.
Follow him on Instagram. Tell him I sent you. And if you get a chance to go to Austin, and I'm so glad Marin really rode me on this, and I'm glad Burr really, Bill was like, we got to go to that.
Yeah.
Go to Seaboys and see this.
Right.
I've been dying to do comedy there during South by Southwest. I talked to the owner.
Oh,
and I was like, I want to do have 4 comics in here during South by Southwest.
Oh, that would be killer.
It'd be cool, right?
Do you know David Herman?
I don't.
Well, David Herman does a lot of voice work and so forth, and he was on, I know him because he did Mike Judge, was it Office Space?
Oh, Office Space. Oh, that's
right.
Great.
So he played Michael Bolton in that.
Oh, yeah.
But he's a comedian, and when we were playing the gallery, he was living in Austin, and he had this ventriloquist act that he was doing called Jofus, and it was the world's worst.
Oh, that's
and it was
great.
so great. Like, he did it horribly on purpose, and he would come up, and I remember we had a New Year's Eve epiphany, like, hey, come open for the trio on New Year's Eve. And I've never seen someone just dive bomb in a room. Oh. And I couldn't stop laughing. And David Herman's so genius, but Jofus, check out Jofus.
Are you into any modern comedy right now?
I like Bill Burr. That's what, when I see Bill, like, I don't know that much about comedy. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I still like Rodney Dangerfield or something.
Who
right?
doesn't,
like,
dude?
I don't know how hip I am.
But that's because you're talking about like the Stevie Ray Vaughns of comedy. When you talk Rodney, you talk Richard Pryor, George Carlin.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, these guys got licks.
Well, they do, and it was like, but now, even though I don't know that much about it, I mean, I was just in New York at the Blue Note watching a friend of mine.
Across the street, the cellar, you went...
Well, I wasn't going there, but I went into the Blue Note to see a friend of mine playing. I'm outside watching the line down the block.
Yeah, I perform there all the time.
And I was like, these guys, they're the new rock star. It's absolutely true. And plus, if you're a musician, like my son, when he was younger, he wanted to see George Lopez. He had come to Bass Concert Hall. And I didn't know that much about George Lopez, but he walked out there with a microphone, and I thought, this guy's taking all this money home.
No sound check.
No sound check.
No band guys going, how come we don't play my
band.
song?
All
no band,
that.
No shitty monitor dude.
Man.
No feedback.
Yeah, no, none of that. He's taking all the money. So I'm just like, comics are my heroes, man, for sure. As a musician, you go, wow, this is it. You fly in.
I did them both, and I definitely love music. But
Right.
there's nothing that comes close for me to comedy.
Well, on the other side of that coin is, right, like there's no one to rely on. You can't go, give me a drum solo. I'm failing out here. Ooh. Right? Like it's just you.
You eat dicks, you eat the dicks.
Yeah.
There's no
So I can't imagine that tightrope. That's got to be, everybody in the world fantasizes about, man, I'm going to go up to an open mic. Like they'll say, you're funny, and you're like, and it's just suicide because you can't do what they do.
Well, the main thing about comedy is your people think you're funny. That's because they know you.
Absolutely.
When you get on the stage, they don't know fucking about your Billy at your job. They don't give a fuck. Me and Billy, we were farting, and then I farted, and then I farted, and they think like I'm just gonna say a fart joke or a dick joke, and then.
Right.
And they're like, and then they burn through all their material in 1 minute. They think they got 10.
Right.
And you're like,
what was that transition from musician to comedian like? That must have been it.
It was so weird because everybody goes, well, you kind of had it. You did 25 years of music, so you kind of had an upper hand. I go, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
There's the only same thing is the wood you're standing on and the microphone you're holding. Nothing else is the same, except for the audience is your drummer. That's your timing because you're going off the laughs.
Right.
But there's nothing the same. With songs, when you're writing a verse, it might be 3 lines.
Yeah.
Here she comes again. All right, there's my verse.
Yeah.
Now the chorus, I love you, girl.
Yeah.
And you write like 10 lines for a whole song. A joke, an hour of comedy.
I can't imagine.
Is just fucking you.
Yeah, and you're walking out there and you're just, people are staring at you going, entertain me.
Make me laugh.
Make me laugh.
Yeah.
They can be, I'm sure, like they are in music, and it's like some people, such assholes. Such dicks. Like they're drunk or whatever the fuck it is.
The drunk guy's the worst.
Or they might be jealous or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, what was the clip I saw of, Norm Macdonald? Someone
he's one of the greatest.
Heckling him.
He's one of the greatest.
And it was he turned it around.
Yeah.
So, they were like, you suck. And he was like, I'm sorry. Can I, he offered them their money back. Oh, well, you probably thought it was going to be this and it's this.
Yeah, you thought it was going to be this SNL guy.
Yeah. And by the end, they were like yelling like, we love you, Norm. Like, it was
like the night we were there, and the guy, he yelled out at Jimmie, where's Stevie?
Oh, man.
Remember that night? He was like, where's Stevie? And then Jimmie stopped. What the fuck you said? It was crazy. We were like, whoa, this is radical.
Yeah, because people will say like the dumbest shit, and they'll be like, just, you can't believe they're doing it, right?
You can't believe it.
You can't believe it because you go, I would never do that. Like, no matter how drunk I would be, I would never yell at the comedian or yell at Jimmie Vaughan about his brother in the middle of this thing.
A legend, Jimmie Vaughan.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Oh, man.
But it happens.
Yep.
It happens, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man, for doing the show.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to see you play again one day. And
thanks for having me, man.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. What are you up to? You fly out tomorrow?
I fly back tomorrow. So, man, I had a good time here. And I rented a Dodge Challenger, man, which was nice. So I'm just driving around town, cruising. I'm probably going to go see Gibbons. I have a good Hollywood story, though, for you. Do we have any time?
Oh, yeah. What are you talking about? We got all the time in the world.
Okay. This is because I don't know anything about show business. So this makes this better.
I love good Hollywood story.
I know Mike Judge, who did Beavis and Butthead and all these shows now. But I met him. He was a bass player. This was before all that. He was a bass player in Dallas, and I was a guitar player. So we got to know each other. And then, like, one day he came over and he had like a VHS tape, and it was Beavis and Butthead, Frog Baseball, it had Milton. It was 3 things. And I was like, I didn't even know you could draw. Like,
yeah.
And I thought it was, and he goes, man, I got $2,000 for one of, at this animation festival. Anyway, you know what happened with Mike
Which, by the way, let me tell you,
It seemed like a
Beavis and Butthead is one of the funniest things in my lifetime.
Yeah.
In my lifetime.
I used to play because then later on I would record Judge doing it. I was the sound, I'd run the little soundboard, and while he did his voices. And so they would need various, one-off characters that had 3 lines or something. So I was like, the bartender, the guy at the garage sale. So I had like a lot of little parts in Beavis and Butthead, that I would have 1 or 2 lines.
That's an amazing story, dude.
So sometimes I people will find out about that and go, wow, I can't believe you're. So anyway, but I've known Judge for a long time. We're good friends. And so last night I went in I was going to stay with Mike, and he goes, hey, I have this invitation to go see The Irishman movie. And he goes, it's a private screening at this home, and Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be there, right?
Wow.
I was like, wow. So he goes, do you want to come? I can bring a guest. I was like, I don't want to give a lot. I won't tell the whole story because, Judge has his things that happen to him afterwards. But so we're driving to the place. And he looks again at his email that he's gotten.
Yeah.
And he realizes it's not a screening, the movie.
Yeah.
It's like a private dinner at this private house with like Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. And, that's the dinner party, right?
Whoa.
And so when he realizes that, I say, stop the car and let me out.
Yeah.
I can't go to that. I couldn't envision myself sitting in any room with those guys, right?
Yeah.
So I made him drop me off. And I went and had Mexican food. I just couldn't.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I just couldn't.
Was he going no, you got to go?
Yeah, he was like, dude, come. And I was like, I can't.
Oh, wow.
Well, so that was my showbiz story. That's
a great story.
But I was like, let me out of the car. He dropped me off at El Coyote. I had Mexican food. We were right there.
I saw you went there.
Yeah, I was like, we were driving right by. I was like, just stop the car and let me off here. I can't do it.
Oh my God, dude. That would have been a great story, though.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure it would have been, but I just,
I get it.
I'm not at that. That's above my pay grade of show business,
Yeah, most people are like you. And then for me, I'm like, well, I'm only here once.
Well, no.
I want to go see.
There's that side of it, too.
Yeah, I gotta. I'll never, ever be able to do this again.
Well, no, who gets a chance to do that? And it was just complete luck. And I do Forrest Gump my way through life a lot.
Same here.
Things happen, and you're like...
You can't believe it, right?
You can't believe it. It happens all the time. Yeah. And people that know me say, oh, yeah, so Forrest Gump again.
Yeah. I get the same thing. My buddies are like, oh, Dean, the Forrest Gump of rock.
There's some sort of I don't know how to explain it, but Gibbons really has it.
Yeah.
And he just things just happen, and he's just like, yeah. And I wanted to, maybe I snatched a little bit of that mojo from him, because I really saw how he did it, and it was just, he didn't even have to be Billy Gibbons. It wasn't like he's a big star and people are doing things for him. Yeah. It would just be like...
It's kind of like we're magnets. Weird stuff comes at us.
Well, here's a good example. Right before I got on the plane, I realized my wallet, I had washed it. It was leather, and it had just deformed, and I couldn't fit it back into my pocket, and I was about to come out here and get on the plane. And I was like, God damn it. And then I realized Gibbons, the day before, had sent me
a new wallet.
Texas wallet.
Look at that.
Right? Somehow Gibbons, and he does that all the time. He's tapping into the whatever.
I got that Gibbons card over there, Friends of Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
Gives you the card.
Right.
He pays with everything in $2 bills.
Yep.
Yeah, that's wild. His picks, I got one of his picks. It's the
beard.
It's the buffalo coin or whatever cut.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the metal picks.
Those are cool.
Yeah, I love him. I ran into him about 6 months ago at this restaurant by his house, and there he was mid-afternoon. Hey, man, it's like, Billy, I know the Byrne brothers, his guitar tech, and then his guitar tech's brother did sound, and they worked on a tour I was on, and
right.
And I just, Billy is just unbelievable, man. He's a treasure. I wish Billy at this point in his career would just play Pearly Gates for the rest of his life.
I know, right?
I fucking would lose my mind. I know it's worth like $2 million, unfortunately.
Right.
But I wish he would just, although, and I've said this a million times, and we've all said this, Billy sounds like Billy on a piece of shit, anything he picks up. He plays the plastic Gretches. He sounds like Billy. But to see Billy to play Pearly Gates till the day he dies would be so cool, because I haven't ever seen him play Pearly Gates.
Right.
Because he stopped playing that by the time I see ZZ Top on the Eliminator record. That's the first time I see him. I don't see him I don't see him like on Trace Hombres or any of that, because I was young.
The world, I think when I saw him, it was like DeGuayo. I saw him the El Loco tour where they had the...
DeGuayo is my favorite.
And DeGuayo, man. So they were playing DeGuayo, and then I saw them, they were doing El Loco, which is a fabulous record.
Yeah.
And, of course, then Eliminator came, and then I saw all that stuff afterwards. But it was like... And, of course, I didn't know Billy back then.
Yeah.
But... You're right about Pearly Gates. And he told me even, you know the story about how he got it and all that. He tells it a lot.
I don't know that story, actually.
Well, I think he had a Telecaster or something when he was playing. And remember that band, Archie Bell and the Drells? They did a song called The Tighten Up. It was out of Houston. Like, we not only play, we dance just as good as we want. Well, the guitar player on that, I think his name was... Reed Farrell or something like that. Gibbons knew him. I can't remember his name. I think that was it. But anyway, he asked this guy, hey, he saw the Clapton Blues Breakers album where Clapton has like, the Les Paul with the humbuckers in it. So he asked this guy from Archie Bell Band, do you know of a guitar anywhere that has those humbuckers in it? And he said, yeah, man, there's... And what it turned out to be was a Flying V.
Oh, yeah.
And he goes, wow, this is weird shit. This is weird. But
the Carina V.
But it's got the right pickups, right? Like he wanted that sound. So I think he played that for a minute. And then he had a girlfriend or a friend of the band that was coming to Hollywood to try out for a film. And she needed a way to get out there, and they gave her this old, like, I don't know what it was, like an old Packard or something. And she made it to California. The car made it. She got the role, and she said, what do you want me to do with the car? And Billy said, just sell the car and send me the money, And which she did, and she goes, I'm naming this car Pearly Gates because it got me here, and I can't believe it, and I got this, part.
Yeah.
$250 what she got for the car. She sent it to Billy. That day, the guy from the Archie Bell Band called and said, hey, I found the guitar you're looking for, a Les Paul. It's north of Houston. It's under a guy's bed, like a country and western guy has it. And Billy had just gotten that $250, and they went up there, and the guy said, oh, yeah, I haven't played this guitar in a long time. And, Billy said he pulled it out from under the bed, and he opened up the case, and he knew, like, that was it, right?
Oh.
And he said, well, how much do you want for it? And the guy said $250. And that's exactly what he had. And he named the guitar Pearly Gates because of the girl in the car. Oh. And of course that was the famous
it's God.
Guitar.
It's God. I still want to see it in person.
I do too. It's got to be locked into the center of the vault in the bottom of the earth.
It might be at his house, who knows? But about a month ago, I got a private tour at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. That's super cool.
In the vaults. They call it the vaults. So you go in these back rooms where there's stuff, because they rotate the shit in and out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because they have so much stuff. So the woman, and there's these fireproof trays. And so she slides one out. She's like, yeah, I'm looking at something. And as she slid one tray out, I could see a Les Paul under the tray. And I go, hey, what's that? And she slid it out. And it was Gary Rosington's Les Paul.
Oh, wow.
The one he plays
Leonard
every fucking thing ever. And the hair on my arms stood up. She pulled it out, and I was like, what the fuck? And I'm thinking, this guy's still alive.
Yeah.
And this thing's sitting in a tray here in the back room in Cleveland.
Right.
This is a goddamn crime.
Right.
And the smell coming off it, every mark on it. the grooves where he put the strings in the whole time. There's a million scratches from string in it. And I just looked at it for a half hour. I took 100 photos.
Yeah.
And I lost my mind. But there's 5 Les Pauls that really do that. It's Jimmie Page, Pearly Gates, Rosingtons.
Yeah.
The early Slash one, because he's a big Les Paul guy.
Yeah.
And then probably Dwayne Allman's.
Right.
Dwayne Allman's,
Yeah.
and he got his refretted, and they pounded the frets in the back of the body, and it says Allman in the frets. So those are the 5 that are like really like.
Yeah, when you see those things.
Oh man.
Where was I recently that I saw a bunch of like
the Met? Did you go to that one?
Well, we played the Met. We backed up Steve. Well, no, we on that one we played. Then Steve Miller played. He kind of was helping with all that.
Yeah.
The exhibit, and I never saw it. Like
shit.
I missed. They were kind of gonna give us a tour the night before, and I missed it. And then we played the show, and I was trying to get out of there to go to the Beacon.
Oh yeah.
To see Tedeschi Trucks was playing, and they had invited us over there. Oh, they were great, man.
Yeah.
And but it was it was getting close to the end of their show, and I was trying to get out, and the guy said, "Let me show you the way out." And we're going through the Met, like we're going through, like I remember the armor room, and the guy said, I can't believe we're running through the museum.
Yeah.
And you see all these amazing things, right?
Yeah.
And you can't stop because you're in a rush and everything's
Beacon.
dark.
Yeah.
But I remember we stopped and it was like, this is Henry VIII's armor. It was like small. He's like, you had to stop for that. And then we kept running like we were trying to get out of there. But it was just like being in a movie or something.
Yeah,
Seeing all these amazing exhibits.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah, man.
What a great conversation with you.
I hope so.
And
It was great talking to you.
Have a safe trip home. And like I said, everybody get the Drifter. It's on iTunes and Amazon Music and all that stuff, Spotify. And get a vinyl and go see this man play. And thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. It really helps. And catch all the bonus episodes on patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Thank you. See ya.